This is Brian from ScreenFiles.com with review. The movie I'm looking at today is Alien Covenant, and surprised to say, I actually liked this movie. I don't think it was a great movie, but it was entertaining. It was Ridley Scott who directed it, so it was gorgeous to look at. Beautiful vistas, fully realized worlds. These are the things that are hallmarks of Ridley Scott movies, and we see a lot of that here. It's entertaining. Is it a great movie? No, not even close. Is it good? Depends on how you look at it. As I said, I enjoyed it, but I had a few issues with it. My first issue is that this movie is essentially the Island of Dr. Moreau. If you recall that movie, I believe there were two versions. One with, I want to say Burt Lancaster. The other one I know with Marlon Brando. And in that movie, there's this island and this doctor who's a bit of a nut, who goes about creating these experiments with humans, creating hybrid human/animals. And that's pretty much Alien Covenant. Instead of the mad doctor, you have a mad robot played by Michael Fassbender in a dual role as David from Prometheus and Walter, who's a new robot who's accompanying the crew of the Covenant, a spaceship that's looking for a new home for humanity. And he's great in it. But as I said, it's essentially the Island of Dr. Moreau. It's not bad, but it's very derivative of that movie, which kind of surprised me. I didn't expect to go in to see that. Another thing is that they play with the origins of the origin of the alien. I mentioned Island of Dr. Moreau before, and this is where that comes in. The alien is essentially created by David. Now, this doesn't make a lot of sense. And I thought this was the aspect of the movie I heard about from other people, and I thought that I wouldn't like it. And I frankly wasn't crazy about it. I don't see why they meddled with the mythology like that. And also, the alien is most fascinating when you don't know anything about it. That's where its true terror lies. It's this great unknown that you have no concept of, except that it bleeds acid blood and it's extremely vicious. Understanding of something in general doesn't promote fear. It promotes learning. It promotes dealing with a problem. So, to learn more about aliens for me kind of was underwhelming. It showed me that they weren't really things to be afraid of, that you can just mix and match and essentially turn them to puppy dogs if you have enough time to spend with the experimentation. And that's kind of not great. I didn't like that aspect. I mean, in the context of the movie, it worked, but it would have been so much better if they had stuck with the original mythology, in which case these were creatures of unknown origin. They just were. They were primal, they were vicious, and they just were. They didn't require explaining. They are, and I like that. Another thing is that it really doesn't make any sense. First off, if you remember Prometheus, there was a mural on the wall, pictured here. The mural is of an alien queen, or some type of alien xenomorph creature. So how did David make it first? Clearly it exists. Well, you can't say necessarily it existed from a picture, but it was envisioned at the very least, and at the very most it already existed. So how is David creating these things? It contradicts itself. Another thing that doesn't make sense to me is that according to Covenant, the egg came before the chicken. And actually, if you believe in evolution, that really doesn't make sense. In that birds, most of our science tells us that birds, at least so far, the thing about science is it can change if some new fact is found. But as of now, most scientists believe that today's birds are the great ancestors of dinosaurs. So I'm not quite sure how you get the egg first. It doesn't really make sense. And never mind that the existence of the egg before something to lay the egg pretty much gets rid of the queen, at least following the logic of Alien Covenant. Now, they could perhaps make it so that there's an actual queen that David patterned what he was doing on, but there's no sign that the movie's going to do that. There's no hint whatsoever that that's the case. So it's just weird that they undermine a lot of the mythology for the entire series of movies. Now, this is a problem for me. Why? Because the movie makes a point of stating how advanced Walter's model of android is compared to David. He's a few steps up. So first off, why didn't the ship know this was not David? I'm sorry, I meant to say, why does the ship not know Mother, who was also voiced by Sigourney Weaver, I'm pretty sure. It sounded a lot like her. But why didn't Mother not know that that wasn't Walter? I mean, visually, to us, it might look like Walter, but to the computer, why did it respond to him as if he were Walter? That makes no sense at all. He was literally, it's almost comparing, in my mind, a Chevy Corvette to a Chevy Chevette. Both are Chevys, and both are cars. They are not the same thing. The computer should have detected that that was not Walter. Now, could he have done something about that? Maybe, maybe not. But the idea that it couldn't detect it seemed more to me like we got to make this follow the story as opposed to following any kind of law of logic. And I didn't like that much. Another thing that didn't make sense, and other critics have mentioned this as well, it's that critics/reviewers, if I may be so grandiose, have said that they seem to be not the most scientific people. Scientists in these movies are not the most scientific people, in that they go to a planet, it has breathable air. In Prometheus, at least they wore helmets. In Alien Covenant, they didn't even wear helmets. And my thing is, on Earth today, in the wrong area, never mind the breathable air, you can have serious problems. Ebola, I think it's spread by bodily secretions. I want to say blood, or is it an insect vector? Actually, I'm not sure how Ebola spread. But the point being that it exists in an environment that is suitable for human life. There are all sorts of terrible things that exist in an environment where humans can survive. Bubonic plague killed thousands of people. It exists. Actually, it's not all dead. I think in certain places, like the CDC, I think they have samples of it. In other words, I don't think it's totally wiped out, but it's not virulently spreading, or spreading for that matter. But the point being is that just because a planet has air does not mean it's hospitable to human life. And they keep doing this with Prometheus as well as Alien Covenant. And it's so unscientific. It literally makes no sense. It's as if they never heard of bacteria, of viruses, of microbes. It's really odd, and it's stupid. That's the worst thing about it. If it were somehow plausible, I could roll with it. It makes no sense. Who would do that? Just because you can breathe the air doesn't mean that there are not toxins present in that environment that can kill you. Insects, whatever. The point being, breathable air is not the only measure that you're looking for when you're in a place that you have, a planet no less, you have never been before. That would kill you, and it does in this movie. But it shouldn't have, because it should have never happened. It literally makes no sense. Again, one of these things that are done to propel the story along, as opposed to logic. And that gets a little tiring. And another thing that doesn't quite work is the properties of the black goo. It can destroy life, create life, or mutate life. Take something that's pre-existing and change it and distort it. So the black goo can do three things. I want to say black oil, but that's clearly an X-Files reference. But then again, Fox does the X-Files. So maybe this stuff is the same thing from the X-Files. That's an interesting idea. But anyway, you don't know what its properties are at any given time. It literally doesn't make sense. In the movie, and this was given away in the trailer, so it's no mystery, David dropped vials of the black goo on the engineer city. It atomized and became airborne and just killed everyone in the city. Why did it kill everyone in the city? It didn't kill everyone it was exposed to in Prometheus. It didn't kill Dr. Holloway. It didn't kill the geologist. It mutated them, but it kills engineers. And in humans in this movie, it turns them into vessels to have these parasites. The alien, the xenomorph, essentially it's a parasite. So this inconsistency is just odd. And again, it seems more of, let's make the script do A, B, and C, as opposed to just making any kind of sense. Another thing, I actually didn't mind it much, though the guy next to me clearly took offense, was that the neomorph, it's the first version of the alien that the settlers of the Covenant encountered. Looks funny. I mean, I laughed when I saw it. Part of it, admittedly, was just to break tension, but it just looked kind of goofy. And it didn't really work for me. It was interesting, but funny. I didn't need to see that at all. Another thing that bothered me was that they messed with the life cycle of the alien. If you remember the first movie, when John Hurt that's the actor, not the character. He was infected with a facehugger. He was attacked by a facehugger, and the egg was laid within him, and it erupted eventually. Now, I think that took a few hours, or maybe even days. They were on a spaceship, so it was kind of hard to tell how much time had passed. But here, the process seems no more than a few hours at best, and he changes the nature of the alien. In the first movie, the alien is essentially helpless. Well, as helpless as a little metal-toothed snake monster ever is, I guess. But in this movie, the alien is born fully formed. It's essentially exactly as it looks like when it's big, except small. Why? In some ways, it reminds me of AVP, another movie I wasn't particularly fond of, that started to play with the alien mythology in such a way that it diminished it. Alien Covenant does the same thing. Why would the alien, earlier in its life cycle, be born fully formed? Then later, variants of the alien be born helpless, or relatively speaking, helpless. It made no sense. And this is, I guess, my biggest gripe with the movie, is that instead of dealing with the mythology as it is, Ridley Scott, he didn't write it, but he did direct it, and I think he exercises an inordinate amount of control over the Alien franchise. Decided to just alter aspects of their mythos, and it wasn't necessary, and it's lazy. You establish certain things. stay within that sandbox. Deal with that. Make your story work within those ideas. Don't change the ideas to fit the story. That's lazy. And I guess in closing, it reminds me that Neil Blomkamp, the guy who did Chappie and District 9, for a time was trying to get an Alien film made. I believe Alien 5, which would have brought back Hicks, Newt, and Ripley. But Ridley Scott, for whatever reason, torpedoed that effort. Haven't seen Alien Covenant. Again, not a bad movie, but I would have liked to have seen someone else's take. Someone who's perhaps a little more faithful to the franchise. This is Brian from screenfiles.com with review. Peace.